On today's episode of the KBC Hoops Podcast, it is a family affair. We've got KBC Hoops co-owner Julius King, along with the University of Evansville Assistant Coach Terrence Commodore. Today, we're going to dive into the origins of KBC Hoops, as well as talking about Terrence Commodore's huge win with Evansville at Rupp Arena this past season. And lastly, we've got advice to future coaches on cracking into the college coaching game. You'll hear it first on the KBC Hoops Podcast. Another episode of the KBC Hoops Podcast. Another episode of the KBC Hoops Podcast. Marcellus Barksdale, co-host Tom Bauer, and today it is a family affair. We've got two of our own. We've got Julius King, also co-owner of KBC Hoops, as well as Terrence Commodore, college basketball coach, another intricate part of what we're doing, fellas. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. Maysville Connection.
We in here.
Hey, we're gonna have some energy today, man. Getting King has been blowing me up the last couple of weeks because he hadn't been able to make it down, but he's chomping at the bit, man, to get in here, and he's going. I'm excited to get our boys on here. He can't wait to talk.
Exactly.
I have a 2-hour podcast with him after every podcast about the podcast.
And again, you know this guy is special when he makes a cameo on the podcast without actually even being here. A couple episodes ago, the homie George Baker giving his best Julius King A-Fam impression with KBC. So it's definitely glad to have him. Also want to give a quick shout out to TC Rockin', Lexington's own. We got Life's Journey on him.
Yes.
Chris Hudson. We've got Wild Things, Jerron Jones right there. So always representing little Lexington drip.
Yes.
So just as we get going on this Maysville connection, right? Julius, TC, you know anybody from Maysville. My test with anybody from Maysville, you know Julius, you know TC. Let's just speak on the connection that you two share with Maysville.
Well, first off, man, we family,
Right.
Yep.
It's
You know what
blood.
I'm saying? So our moms are sisters, but we more like brothers. You know,
Yeah.
like we came up, slept in the same beds, ate out the same cereal bowls. So, you know, for us, it's easy. And basketball always been in our blood.
Yeah.
So, but like anybody from Maysville, man, like it's a close-knit community. And all we ever had was basketball at the Rotary Park. That was our AAU tournaments, playing against the old heads. You know, like I got to see guys like Steve Chambers, Jeff Chambers, Leif Kirk, you know, back in the early 80s do their thing. And then he got to watch me and the Myrick boys, you know, come up and do our thing. And then I got to kick back and watch him and CeeLo and, you know, a couple of Darius and those guys do their thing. So, you know, it's a community thing, man.
How many of those people that you listed are your family?
Damn near all of them.
Almost all of them. I know.
Exactly.
Every time I mention anybody, you know, hey, some random woman from Wichita just called me. Oh yeah, that's my
Yeah,
cousin.
that's my cousin.
So
Hey,
biggest family in history.
Speaking of that, is the family reunion still going on in June?
Not this year. It's pushed back to next
Okay.
summer.
Look,
See?
I'm still waiting on. I need my formal invitation because I feel like I'm honorary as well.
Yeah,
so
you can come on down next year.
Well-
See, a lot of people don't realize when we say a lot of people are our cousins, they really are.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's saying too much. Our granddad had, 21 kids?
Yeah.
Papa was Rolling Stone, huh?
Rolling Stone. He was doing a little bit too much.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing.
sir.
A little too much.
Sherm Dog.
One thing I'll say though, and I tell King this all the time, that you know, whenever he does bring a family member to the table, always solid. Your all's family is built a little different. I think is great family, and the success it goes beyond basketball. Just the most solid people. Like if they say they're going to do something, they do it. Conversely, if you say you're going to do something, you better do it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was raised right.
Yeah, for sure. I'm honorary, a lot of the same value, so it's always a big blessing to share with you guys. But more importantly, just even your all's families, extended families. You know, I feel like we've all been able to grow with each other over the last few years, and as we just talk about this whole podcast, the KBC Hoops Podcast, this whole KBC Hoops business, this was kind of just a culmination of timing and things just coming together. How did all this just come about, just so we can give some more insight to our listeners as far as the the connection between you all and then myself coming into the mix as well?
Well, I'm gonna let TC start it off because
T could probably tell it best.
yeah, he the one brought me in. You
Yeah.
know, like my playing days was over. I'm home on the couch with 3 babies.
Yeah.
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I get a phone call. Hey, fam. Hey, come on down here, man. I got something. We got this going on. We got that going on. I'm like, what? For real? Like he's naming off NBA All-Stars. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, let me come on out the crib, you know. But I let him start that out, man.
I think it really just started with, you know, I was actually coaching at UK, and then I had my son, so I wanted to stop coaching for a little while, so I could, you know, didn't want to miss too much with him, and then we started something called Camp One, and it really kind of took off. Like the very first one we had, I think we had John Wall, Darius Miller, who's obviously family.
So exactly when you say
Patterson.
we had Camp One, just to dive in for our listeners, what exactly do you mean by that when you say we had Camp One, and you know what was the connection with these former UK players, NBA players currently?
Well, I had worked with all those guys when I was coaching the UK, and you know had pretty good relationships with them. Still talk to them to this day. And I was just talking, just brainstorming with people, and we figured we could start doing some camps around here. You know, they weren't really being done that much, and then it just grew from there.
I was
exactly. So little bit of competition there. So, but again, that right there, the competitive focusing everybody in their own lane. So we get that TC, you starting Camp One, bringing Julius on board. Running some major basketball camps.
Well, when I kind of had to, because once I got back into coaching, I was no longer allowed to do it.
Yeah.
So, he's always around. He was working them all. He worked them all every summer. So I trust him, and he knew what to do. And I figured he could, he can make it grow. And then we just, from there, fast forward a few years later, we expanded a lot, did a bunch of different things, combines and all that. And here comes Tom, and, we just was just talking about just basketball to just the whole culture in the state. And, the KBC idea came about, connected them two, and they took it and ran with it.
Yeah, so how'd that first phone call go? I know, T was the common thread between you two initially, and he essentially just, dialed up the number, put you all in contact. How'd that first conversation go?
So, T and I have known each other for a while. Really just him always coming, when I was here at KBA, what it used to be, he was always around, whether it be tournaments or
we
play.
Me come in for free to watch, tournaments.
Yeah.
Every time, risking my job for this guy. But
I'm
I
telling
saw something
Pritchard.
in it. They'll charge me. But so T and I have known each other for a while. But one thing that people know about T is that if he says something, it's not going to be with a lot of words, but if he does say something, he means it. Like, you better take it serious. And I've always respected that about him. And so I believe our conversation, he called me. At the time, I had resigned. I'd left here at KBA and was kind of doing some more national things, just camps and different things like that. So T called, and it was really probably a 3 to 5 minute conversation. He just kind of gave me a little bit of the rundown on who Julius was. And thought that all he said was, you and Julius need to talk. But again, I translate that in whenever I talk with T, you need to talk. That could be like a 30-minute. I knew there's something behind it, right? It was worth my time. And so ended up calling Julius just kind of out of the blue, or I forget if I called you. Either way, he ended up connecting us. And from the when we got done with the first conversation, I called T back and I said it's on. Like Julius and I probably talked for only maybe 20 minutes, something like that. But with T saying it was good, and then Julius, and how that went, I knew that it was solid and worth going in together. And I'll say this: when they started Camp One, we were joking just a minute ago because I was over here at KBA at the time. But when they started Camp One, from the jump, I knew it was legit and actually really, really respected what they were doing. And so this all made sense in regards to their character, because we were competing in a way, in a major way, but never once did I catch wind that they were saying something about me. Never once did they catch wind that I was saying something about them. It was actually the opposite. People would call me about going to their camps, and I say, man, you better go, just because I knew who was involved. And that's – that's super rare in any business, but especially in like a basketball business where it's really the Wild West and anybody can start a camp. And most of the way that people get started is by trying to tear other people down instead of just talking about their product. And so this whole thing from day one there's been a lot of respect, a lot of seriousness about it, and it's genuine. And I think everybody sitting at the table would agree that none of us want to let each other down.
Definitely.
More than any kind of like success that we want to achieve. It's when Julius and I make plans, if he tells me he's going to do something, he feels this like real urge to do it, and that's same for all of us. And so, I feel blessed to know these guys. But that's really how that came together. King, what do you think?
No, that's it, man. And then after the phone conversation, I came up and met you and our boy Mike Jones.
Yes, sir.
At Drake's. We sat down and we conversated.
That's right.
And then, from that time, I think it took us. Well, we talked over the phone for about 6-7 months. And you came up to the Midwest Spotlight in Cincinnati where we had like 300 kids from all over the country. Yeah. Something that we built up from the grassroots with Darren Breeze at Coast to Coast. And, after that, I think it sparked both of us.
Yeah, it was the first time we got to work together in any kind of capacity.
You came in and kind of took over a lead role, when I needed somebody to step in and help me out. So I knew from that point on, like, let's go ahead and do this.
But just specifically real quick, that camp, that was a tough day because we had, it might have been 100 kids show up to try to register the day of. And so we were properly staffed, but you just never could have guessed that many extra people would come. And so I just want to jump in and help. And I wasn't trying to take the lead role. No. But I also brought somebody with me. You remember that? Yeah. I brought somebody with me that camp. I brought somebody with me.
So I'll kind of hop in and out. And this is the crazy part about everything, how it just kind of flowed. And, the backstory behind all that, I actually met TC my first time. I was at UK basketball camp. I think we had an elite camp back in the day when elite camps was super, super popping. I'm talking, it was a fun time. And I think you might have been coach. Man, I think it was Josh Selby. Went to Kansas.
Was there playing?
Yeah, anybody who was anybody around the country was playing. Had the craft popping with Memorial. Probably 5-6 courts going, just playing. But anyway, got a chance to meet TC for the first time, and then we ended up doing some things together in Lexington on the basketball side. Running some kind of dirt bowl tournaments, and then parties and all that stuff. So we making money a little bit here and there, having a good time doing it. So that was that connection with TC, just kind of growing out over the years. And then connected with Tom, just recently I was running a printing company, reached out to me, used to meet for lunch every week, and, just grew and grew and grew. And then, I actually planned on being in Cincinnati that same weekend, and it was a friend's birthday. Camp was the next morning, so I'm like, cool. So I'm hurting that morning, but I get over there and it's lines wrapped outside the door. So instantly, I hop in mode, just how can I help? How can I help? And that was the first weekend we all came together on the basketball front. And again, it was a super, super successful weekend. It was really my first look into youth basketball. Again, I had been involved in basketball as a player, played, but my first kind of involvement, at a large level and really kind of seeing youth basketball. So that pretty much set everything off. And, that was an interesting summer. And it was around that time when this whole thing really just started forming and taking place. And this would have been early summer of 2018. And lo and behold, a couple months later, KBC Hoops is, official all the way. And
you know what, man? It was crazy because when the situation came up, I was messing with him like, call him up, man. Let's see if it can happen.
Hold on. Wait. I want to tell that. You're talking about KBC, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So with that, let's just say the building became vacant, over the summer, and so King and I, we already had plans for like so many other different things
some stuff
that we actually. We had talked about calling the Hattons about getting into here probably a month before we actually even really did it, just because we had so many different things going on that we didn't know if we could take this on, or we just weren't that interested. And then I'm driving down to North Carolina for my boy Nate's golf bachelor party thing, and you're like, man, you're in the car anyways. Why not just call them and see what's going on? And we didn't even really think anything of it, right?
Right.
We thought maybe we would just maybe do a couple tournaments, maybe a camp, or just have a place to do some camps here and there or whatnot. And just kind of on a whim just said, all right, well, fine. Well, I guess we'll do it. It was not like we planned this out and just like, it was just,
we didn't seek out to do everything that we come to do.
No.
You know?
So just to kind of bring that up to speed, and even with the current times of everything going on with this pandemic situation, you know, we go from that situation with less than 2 years ago, just starting this business on a whim, right, to now having to navigate this a time like we've never seen before in the course of recent history. How does just being able to go on the fly with our past experiences, how do you think that's going to play out with everything that KBC Hoops, Camp One, and everything else continues to grow?
Wait a minute. There's nothing that's on the fly because I have to answer to these two in some form or fashion because they consult. I mean, they consult on everything. And what we were talking about earlier is how we just owe it to each other at a different level to do our best because I'm representing him, he's representing me, like all of us in some form or fashion because we're connected or representing each other. So even when things are done on a whim, Marcellus, you know better than anybody, we're detailing, we're planning out the details of the details of the details when we do decide to do something. And so even if it's on a whim, it's not going to be on a whim like, let's just try it. It's like, nope, if we're doing this on a whim, we're going all in.
Well, it can kind of be like Lil Wayne or Jay-Z, you know, with they freestyling. They got the Rolodex up here in their head.
Facts.
So, you know, they can kind of swap out whatever lyrics they need to swap out, and now you got your freestyle.
Right.
Because we put in the work.
We prepared.
Right. We put in the preparation.
Yeah.
And speaking on that, we might have to get another segment popping here soon and get DJ J King up here to split a couple. That's another story for
He used to have the park hopping.
the park hopping.
Back in the day.
Man.
And
It's KBC hop. Everybody
KBC,
knows
exactly.
that.
I was about to say,
Everybody listening right now knows
if
KBC
you've
is
been and
ridiculous.
stepped foot inside of our facility, nice summer day, warm day, grill going out front,
Oh,
Lisa,
No doubt.
TC's oldest
I'm
sister.
nervous about
Holding it up.
that we're having tea on before Lisa.
I know, right? Matter of fact,
Genuinely nervous. Like we may have to hold this episode back.
might have
I'll
to.
text her. I won't give a call.
Yeah,
I'll
please.
just text
Thank
her.
you.
And again, just some of the few personalities or some of the many personalities that we've been blessed to be a part of with at KBC. And just to touch on more of your background, TC, just finished Evansville as a coach. How was this season with you in the coaching ranks? And we'll kind of just work ourselves backwards a little bit. But how did the season go being in Evansville? And just how was that experience?
I mean, I think you can use, I guess, any experience you're in to learn from. It was obviously a roller coaster. You know, as everybody knows, we go from beating the #1 team in the country at UK, and then you know, going into Christmas break, kind of rolling. You know, probably one of the top 2 or 3 teams in our conference. Then, you know, obviously we had the coaching change. You know, what happened with that, and then a couple injuries here and there, and you know, it's kind of nosedived a little bit. You know, all the guys, they gave us their all, stayed together, but you know, mentally they was kind of fractured. So, you know, the season it didn't end how we had all planned, but you know, everything happens everything in life happens for a reason. Obviously with the pandemic now, nobody expected this to go on. You just gotta, you know, adjust on the fly and try to figure it out. But you know, we can learn a lot from it. You know, how to face adversity and keep trucking.
And that's just one of the things we want to talk about, too. That moment when you all came in to Lexington, Kentucky, Evansville, beaten #1 in the country, you were also graduate assistant at UK, been familiar from Maysville, a lot of time in Lexington. How big was that moment for you personally?
Oh, it was huge. You know,
Yeah.
It was huge. Obviously, you go into the game. I mean, I'm not gonna say we expected to win, but you know, we had a solid game plan. We just want to try to keep it close, you know, throughout. And then, you know, as everybody's ever played basketball knows, once the ball goes up, anything can happen. And, you know, you get a little confidence and guys start believing, like, you know, we can play with these guys. And then, obviously, they executed and we won. But it was real big. I mean, it's probably as big an accomplishment as I've had so far in coaching.
Yeah.
And we look at that, getting to that high, and we know that, you know, you're very soft-spoken, very, very humble. But when it comes in terms of the amount of work that you had to put yourself in to even position yourself to get to that chance to not only get on a coaching staff, but, you know, proper role game planning, was that your scout?
Yes, it was my scout.
Your
Yeah,
scout, and
Hey.
and again,
Well,
in
obvious
the
reasons.
basketball world,
Hey, you know what? That was the first thing I was asked by
Yep.
like all of our basketball friends.
oh, you know,
Was that his scout?
You know,
Was that his scout? And I just smiled. Yeah, I just smiled.
and you know, for those that are listening that are a little unfamiliar with the way that a college coaching staff works, you know, you've got 34 games in a regular season, and one coach just can't scout each and every game. So coaches kind of break it up based on, you know, past experiences or whatever. So, you know, each matchup is assigned to a coach, and for a coach to come out and get that huge win, being your scout, there's probably no better feeling in the world. So, you know, I watched that game, and I felt like I was playing, like I was in the locker room and everything. But, you know, huge shout out to that. And when you just look back at your time at UK, starting out as a grad assistant, you know, under Billy Gillespie, and then kind of transition into that Calipari era, which, you know, we now know is some of the best basketball, arguably the best basketball atmosphere, regardless of level in the world. How was that experience in navigating your earlier times?
Yeah, do you
at the
mind
University of
do
Kentucky?
you mind if I back up just a little bit?
Go ahead.
Everything that we do on the show, we try to show how basketball is a tool, right? Like basketball is just a tool like everything else, but we try. That sounds cliche, so we try to break it down to where people that, let's say, there is a Kentucky kid somewhere right now with a similar background to you that wants to do what you do, and so we try to let people come in and share to where that young person can be inspired to actually accomplish what they're doing. We know there's a ton of mysteries out there about, I mean, how do you just show up on UK staff? How do you just show up on Evansville staff and get the scout to beat Kentucky? That didn't happen just by chance or by luck. It's been moves that you've done. But can you quickly go through, like, after high school, because you played on some really good Mason County teams,
Yeah.
had a lot of success, but what made you go the coaching route instead of college, playing college basketball, and trying to commit to that route? But how did you get to where you are now, just as briefly or as long as you want to go? But
Well, no problem. I always knew I wanted to get into coaching. You know, for as long as I can remember. Obviously wanted to play, but you know, I think I really came more fond of coaching in high school from actually my football coach David Buchanan and then my basketball coach Kelly Wells. Those two were really kind of instrumental to kind of jumpstart me into coaching. But after high school, I had opportunities to play college basketball at some smaller schools, but kind of really didn't want to go that route. I knew I wanted to coach. I wasn't going to play professional ball or nothing. So I just went to EKU. Did a 1 year. 1 year I did kind of a shadowing experience with one of the basketball coaches there. Learned a little bit from that. It was based off a coaching basketball class I was in. And then after that, the first summer after, actually, the summer before I was going to graduate, I had to do an internship. And I reached out to Coach Smith. Tubby was there, and the women's basketball. But actually, I got my internship with the women's side. So
Now was Trey Clark over there?
no,
then?
he was
was gone.
He was already gone.
That's another Maysville representative.
So yeah, I actually worked with Coach Mitchell and them that summer, just as an intern, just around the office. Worked all the camps. I think Coach G had just got, maybe he had just got hired.
yeah,
So they ended up asking me to work the men's camps too that summer. So kind of build a relationship with them then, and then fast forward the next year after I graduate, I'm doing the camps again, and he asked me, you know, we discussed about being a graduate assistant. So, you know, I got on like that. Like a lot of hard work networking, you know, doing all those camps and just constantly emailing, talking to people. Actually, and kind of had to make a huge sacrifice. I had to, my first year, I did it like for completely free.
pause.
There we go.
What we talk about
There we go.
the first second podcast. If you're wanting to get into this stuff, so you mean to tell me that right out of high school, Coach Cal didn't come to you and say, "Coach, on my staff." Be a part of my staff.
Exactly.
That's not how it went
No, it
down.
don't happen
Okay,
like
I
that.
just want to make sure. So
Don't happen like that.
that's great information. So all that work, and you're making it sound a lot easier than it is. But a whole summer interning for, you know, running camps, doing all this sort of stuff, working for free. You know, that's a great testament. But that's what kids
Well,
need
let
to.
me clarify.
Yeah.
that summer I got paid to work the camps now.
Right.
But I did my internship.
A
with the
ton of
local
money,
camp.
right? You got paid life-changing money to work.
I was able to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
But like after the internship, I had one more year of school left to finish at EKU. Graduated, came back, did the camps again, and then at the end of the summer, that's when I did was asked to do a grad assistant. So I had to do my first year. I had to do it for free and pay my own way.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I mean, it looked great, and I'm glad I did it. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I had to sacrifice a lot to do it, and just kind of once I got my foot in the door, kind of grew from there.
That's super
Coach,
helpful.
after my first year, Coach G, unfortunately, he was let go for whatever reason, and Coach Cal was coming in, and luckily he decided to keep me on. So shout out to Coach Cal for that.
How did that?
Not-
So
Yeah,
how did that go? So tell me, how does that go? Because if I remember correctly, Gillespie, I mean, he had a decent sized staff. I think he had like 20 players on the team, like 15
Yeah.
walk-ons, and it seemed kind of like didn't seem like the best situation. I know you're going to try to be politically correct about it, but at the time, for Kentucky standards and their fan stand, it was a kind of a dumpster fire. And so most of the time, a new coach coming in, you wouldn't really want any remnants of maybe bad habits or viewing things, because you know how specific coaching can be. You have to be open-minded. But how did that happen in the conversation come about with Cal?
Couple coaches he knows and I know.
Yeah.
They actually had reached out to him first, and then once he got there, we had a conversation. He was good.
Yeah.
Obviously, at first you had to build up trust with him. Those first few months, but after that, it was all good.
What were some of your responsibilities?
Man, it throughout the years, it was like just a huge range. On-campus recruiting. Back then, mail-outs was real popular. Helping coordinate visits when guys come on campus. Breaking down film. Working out the guys. They all want to come in, and after practice, before practice, spend time in the gym working those guys out. Helping coaches do their scout reports,
What about waking
wide
players up
range
for
of-
practice to make sure they come to practice?
You're kind of responsible. If you got to get there early, and if guys aren't there, you don't want you want the head coach or none of the assistants to come down and everybody's not there for practice. So you kind of had to go over there and make sure they was there. So, kind of know their
Politically
whereabouts.
correct talk again. He's not. He's got
Yeah.
He's got 15 stories in his mind right now.
You gotta know everybody's whereabouts.
That's
at all
right.
times.
Yeah, exactly,
You gotta know their
exactly.
girlfriends, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
Right.
And now looking at it too, I think, even running the camps for them as they got out of college into professionals and things like that, you look at your relationship with these guys now, how did that really translate from your time spent while they're at UK for 6-7 months to now having a trusted relationship to this day? What advice do you have to young aspiring coaches or anybody just in terms of the power of networking and building relationships? How do you set your stuff apart so that you're able to, in such a short period of time, maintain that trust over the course of, years now, to where to this day, these guys are some of the biggest names, biggest athletes in the world, and, you all still have that same genuine friendship, genuine relationship with advice and things like that?
I think the main thing is you just gotta work. If they see you working and they see that you care about them, you're not just trying to be around, trying to be their friends. But if you get in there and work with them, it allows you to build trust with them, and then just spending time with them. It's kind of, as a GA, your job is kind of really just spend as much time as possible with the players, get to know them, so you can help kind of be a liaison between them, a buffer between them and the staff, and they'll tell you more than they probably will.
Mm-hmm.
Older guys, so you're similar in age to them at the time, so you just kind of really just working with them in the gym and just spending a lot of time with them on and off the court. Once you get to know them, I mean, they just normal, genuine people.
That's big. You had a good question though. I had to back it up, but let's
you're
go
good.
back to that question about the differences that he. Or
Yeah.
Some of the,
So again, Tom put it as bluntly as possible, a dumpster fire, essentially, from the outside looking in. just keeping it real. That's how the perception of what was going on based on, the trajectory of UK's tradition. But just going from that transition with Billy Gillespie era into this Calipari era, which is, again, one of the most high-profile basketball programs in all of basketball. Just how was that coming into it, just that transition period?
It was definitely different. I mean, like Cal brought a whole different energy. You know, I guess the fan base and just everybody around was kind of hungry. Like, it kind of had been a while before he got there, before I guess UK would get the, you know, quote unquote, the cool kid coming out of high school. They, you know, they was there for a little period of time. They was, most of the 5-stars were going to Carolina, Duke or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So once he came in and boom, John commits, who was probably, obviously was the #1 player in high school, but probably still got the best mixtape in high school I've ever seen. So, you know, instantly this social media is starting to spread now. All that energy was popping, and once all that started happening, I mean, it was just, you know, players win games. So, I mean, he brought in a ton of good talent, and he knows how to coach them and bring them along and you know, help them turn from young men into, you know, grown men, as you see the success they have once they leave. But, I mean, Coach G, I mean, he wasn't a bad coach. He knew basketball. I will say that. He knew basketball. Obviously, he's the D1 head coach again now. Just got hired, I guess, a couple weeks ago. Yeah. But I guess it was just –
it's got to be a fit.
The job might have been a little too much. It wasn't a good fit for him.
It's got to be a fit. Yeah.
But, yeah, and then Coach Cal, obviously, it's the perfect fit for him. I mean, he's the success he's had, and he embraces, like, all that comes with UK on and off the court. So,
yeah, it's a big difference from coaching in Texas, which is a football state, than it is in Kentucky, at the University of Kentucky, when everything is basketball. He was like, when you take the Kentucky job, you like the president of the United States around here. So, you know, all the lights is going to be on you around here, man. And I didn't know, like, I met Coach G a couple of times, and I can't speak for him, but being an outsider looking in, that's what it seemed like to me. Like the lights were too bright for him here.
Yeah, but the coaching seemed to actually be together. Like the stuff, I mean, the actual basketball stuff itself.
Yeah, it wasn't the X's and O's
wasn't bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it that wasn't bad. I'm by no means saying the guy can coach, but Cal takes away a lot of excuses for people because you're not basketball smart if you watch Cal coach a game and say he can't coach. All right, first of all, but it is his players seem to play with confidence, and there's some sort of secret sauce he does outside of the X's and O's. You can't teach in X's and O's. They seems to get their players to believe they can do things in certain moments, and you know, just.
I think that's probably why he's in the Hall of Fame. He knows how to pull that out of everybody. You know,
he
usually gets everybody's best. You know, it might not happen the first year, but you know, guys are patient and come back. He'll eventually, and they put the work in as well. He'll eventually pull it out of them, and he has a great staff also that helps him with it as well.
Oh, definitely.
Shout out to Kenny Payne, man.
There we
Joel,
go.
Joel
There we go.
Joe.
Everybody on the staff, and when we go from UK to Eastern Kentucky, where you were, you know, your first official assistant coaching position, what did you learn at EKU that ultimately, you know, helped you along your journey to get to Evansville?
I'd say that the main thing I probably learned from there is, as an assistant coach, you don't want to be like labeled as a recruiting guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to do more to help the program be successful. Definitely. And I learned a lot there. I was there 3 years with Dan McHale. Obviously, it didn't work out. But it was like I said, everything's a learning experience. Main thing I learned is it was my first time being on the court actually as a coach. So it was an adjustment. You know, I get better and better at it now. It's like it's real easy now. But that first year or so, it was kind of tough. You know, you got to command the court a little different than it's like when I was a GA. You got a different relationship with guys. You know what I'm saying? They kind of see you a little differently as opposed to now. I got a assistant coach. I got to get on them. Be
accountability.
There we go.
With them. Like you said, hold them accountable to everything. I got to make sure they're going to class. All that stuff. And at the same time, you got to recruit, and you got to coach. Yeah. So it's a lot of responsibility, but I mean, once you get more and more experience, you know, it becomes a little easier. It's never easy, but you know, it's just more natural now. But
and looking now with your responsibility as assistant coach, been in it, seasoned, looking at this situation right now, how's the approach to recruiting changed just a bit, or you know, what's the differences now between recruiting guys how you normally would, which now you're usually on court, AAU tournaments, EYBL, whatever it is now. What are you doing now to stay engaged on the recruiting front?
Pretty much all you can do right now is watch film. Film of guys, talk to people, the people you might trust that tell you about kids. At the end of the day, I'll be honest, I'm not a huge film guy when it comes to recruiting.
Yeah.
I can watch it to kind of, just to pique my interest, but I prefer to see guys in person. You can see a little more. You can see if they're going to compete. You can see how they interact with their coaches and their teammates. Just stuff like that. Most of the tapes guys seen, everybody looks good on highlight tape.
Definitely.
So I'll watch those, but I prefer game film. And then, like I said, at the end of the day, I still would rather be doing it in person, but we got to adjust right now. So everything's just watching film, talking to kids. We obviously got a huge age difference, so you can't really talk to them a ton. They don't want to hear from you every day. You got to kind of find a balance. Just hit them up, check on them, and just keep building relationships with them. The people that's going to be at the table, helping them make the decisions, and basically just do as much research as you can on their reputation and character, because like you said, you're not going to be able to be in front of them
So
as of right now until at least May 31st.
So not only on top of that, you have a lot of kids that are potential recruitable athletes for you, but now we have is it over 600 players right now in the transfer portal?
Yeah, it's growing every day.
So with that, can you dive into that a little bit on how you and even if people look at it differently, that's fine. I'd like to know that as well. But from a Division I college coach standpoint, if a kid puts his name in the transfer portal from a Division I school, does it make sense to prioritize those kids because another coach has already said that they're a Division I player? So now are high school kids more than ever kind of the second tier?
I think now it's kind of changed. And like I said, I have no problem with kids transferring in the transfer portal.
Sure.
It's their right. I mean, I think they should be able to play immediately. Us as coaches, we can leave when we want. It's not anybody's fault. There's certain situations don't work out for whatever reason. But I think it's different with everybody. We would probably, just to keep it all the way honest, on our chart, we would probably prioritize late in this time of year grad transfers, regular transfers, JUCOs, and then high school kids.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, it's difficult. Obviously,
but you guys are different.
Level.
Yeah, it's a different level. Now, where you guys are, I mean, your conference just had a team go to the Final Four 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay,
Yeah,
so, I mean, your all's conference has been traditionally way tougher than anybody remembers. Like,
We've
it,
had, obviously, a couple teams have left, but it's still tough now. I mean, Wichita State and Creighton, they was in there. They're always very good. Like back in the day, they've always had teams that go really far in the tournament, which helps because you get more revenue for your conference, and then it's kind of it's just a first class conference now. So,
but it's different than obviously a UK, and then it's different than an upstart. Let's say like a Bellarmine. Like different schools have to have kind of their different approach for wherever they are at that time.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Generally, now this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I would say 90% of freshmen aren't ready to play when they come into a college program for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Now, you obviously have the exceptions, the five-star guys. Even some of them take a little time, but when we're in our league, we're playing against old guys.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're having to trot out like 2 or 3 freshmen, then we're just going to struggle because they just aren't ready. And if they are ready, they're really good, and we're probably not going to get them.
Yeah.
They'll be at, like you said, in Kentucky, Duke, Louisville, or whoever, high major schools. So that's the way we go with the approach of, trying to have older guys.
That's good insight on that, man, because people really don't look at it like that. Most fans looking at it like, oh, okay, we got the 5-star guys and then everybody else. You see what I'm saying? But that's good perspective for the high school kids' parents. That's good for them to hear. It's good for high school coaches to hear so they know what they need to work on going forward.
The landscape.
Yeah, and they'll see, like, I think a lot of just the common fan watching, they'll see, like, say, for instance, a mid-major team makes it to the Sweet 16, they got a really good junior point guard. They're like, oh, he should be at such and such. He should be at such. Well, he got better and better. Obviously, as a junior in college, most older guys that's pretty good. They can play at whatever level.
Definitely.
But coming in as a freshman, he wasn't ready for a high major school or whatever, and they don't have time to wait if you're not ready. So
Yeah.
you
So
just
you're
go
talking about the
somewhere,
Dame
grow.
Lillards, the C.J. McCollums,
Yeah.
the Kawhi Leonards,
Yeah,
those
so,
guys.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So, and I'm gonna touch on something too. You never used to see your major D1 blue bloods bringing in transfers or the 5th-year graduate guys. Now you see that more and more.
Older, more experienced guys, and sometimes it's just a plug. They might have missed out on their targets in the fall. They might have went somewhere else. They probably obviously have a higher priority in the fall of signing someone. If they go somewhere else, then you got to fill your roster. Or when the season's over, you don't know who's going to leave or go. So if they lose 2 or 3 older guys that they wasn't expecting, then you got to try to plug in some experience and to stay on the level you want to be at, as opposed to getting like late high school kids.
Can you touch on, since we're kind of on this, I saw something earlier about essentially like Kentucky's roster is going to change almost fully. Like they're almost losing their entire roster of guys that played last year. I think one kid might be coming back. Is that more and more common just through where there's major roster overhauls almost on a year-to-year basis? Is that more common now, or is that really just kind of for a couple of schools?
Yeah, that's really just for them. They really the only people that can do that and recover every year.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause they'll
Right.
lose whoever and they'll bring in kids that's just as good or even better sometimes. But most, I would say, other than them and Duke, most people can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously everybody has transfers with it being so many in there, but most people will lose, 3 or 4.
Wow.
But
How do you plan for that with your recruiting, though? Like, do you guys, is it just experience and kind of knowing the kid's personality? I mean, how can somebody pop up and, like Matt Painter at Purdue, 7'3", big guy that can play a little bit? I wonder do you think he maybe had an inkling, like a little thought that at the beginning of the season that he could transfer, or are most of these transfers that you understand, are they kind of shocks in the last couple of months?
I can't really comment on that particular player.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but I can
this
say
is
this.
overall.
Usually, you kind of have a feeling who's gonna leave as the year goes on, because obviously your assistant coaches and everybody spending time talking to them. You kind of get a feel for guys that's trying to leave. If guys start picking up extra classes, they're trying to graduate, so it's for a reason. So,
yeah.
But sometimes it will catch you off guard.
Yeah, I won't say the school, but a couple of years ago there was a school's best player came to the coaching staff in the spring and said, "Hey, I want to graduate early. I'm not going anywhere, but I really just want to be able to start working on my master's degree. Can I add these couple of classes? I know it's going to cost a little bit more money." And the coach is like, "Are you sure? It sounds like you're setting us up to transfer." He's like, No, I'm in. I'm all the way in. Got those classes done, and what do you think happened a month later?
Well,
Gone.
So I can speak on this. I can speak on this personally. I did the same thing, and I didn't transfer, but I knew going into my college situation that I was going in under a new coach, and the coach that I signed the play under was gone. So there was some uncharted territory for everybody as a program. So I just knew it was in my best interest to, essentially maintain ultimate leverage. But I also knew that I couldn't come in on day one and say that I'm going to graduate in 3 years. So I ended up getting hurt my second year, which kind of gave me an opportunity to really finesse it quite a bit. So I wasn't playing. I wasn't traveling anymore just because I had to have surgery on my foot. I had a back problem too. So it was actually more of a hassle. I knew it was costing them money for me to travel also. So I was like, look, I'm not doing much. I'll go ahead and kind of take a couple extra classes just to make just to stay busy. Like, everything's straight. I got my 3.5, 3.7, and instead of taking, this 12 hours, let me go ahead and take 18 hours every semester. And just kind of threw that under the rug right there. And you look up, and we had summer school as well. You look up in 3 years, and, I'm ready to bounce. But I also knew, though, that that's the business at that point because, again, just like TC said earlier, coaches can leave whenever they want to, and I promise you a coach is going to leave because, again, they've got responsibilities, they've got families, and end of the day, you know, as a player, I think that you should actually even welcome that a little more, but it's just competition on every level to where, you know what, if I can make sure that this program is maintained and that I'm, you know, finding the best fits for players and things like that, well, maybe he does graduate and he still does stay. But, you know, it's just kind of a free market type of world.
And it's always information out there.
Yep.
You know? I mean, it's coaching is it's a small world. So people talk, like guys around people, they'll be calling around other schools and it'll get back to you that, well, you know, such is talking about leaving. They called us, yada, yada, yada. Now, I don't know if Sal remembers. Sal, we got a call about him.
Yep. Hey, but
Mr. Officer said Marcellus might be interested in coming back to home.
But listen to this.
Close to home.
But listen to this. My bags was packed. Like I literally knew on day one, bro. We used to talk all day, every day about, man, I can't wait. We was locked up, man. Like, what's the first thing you're gonna do when you get out? You know what I mean? Like, where you gonna go? What you gonna do? So I definitely understand the familiar, but I knew also too that I wanted to have my ducks in a row and I wanted to kind of maneuver. So I'm throwing word out to people to get word to certain places. TC was at EKU, and then just trying to figure out how to go because I didn't want to go and have nowhere to go. I wanted to have it essentially a done deal. I'm going to transfer today and, you know, I'm going to sign tomorrow.
Let's see if he would have came. We might still be in the
That's what I'm saying.
we need to vet
That's
that.
I went to those games.
AEW knows guys doing
That's
a
right.
heck of a job.
They're
with
doing.
that
They're
now.
they doing
killing
pretty
it.
good
They're
job.
killing
They're
it.
killing it.
So we always try to pass along knowledge to the listeners, whether it be the parents or the kids that are listening. Recruiting is just a heavy topic on this show because there's so many mysteries behind it, and so we just like to go straight to the sources. What are some of the, you know, obviously talent is a big thing, but there's a lot of talented kids that never play college basketball, and frankly, you know, maybe they're too high risk in regards to their character off the court or the things that they're into or their grades or whatever it might be. But in regards to recruiting, what are some of the things that kids have to do, like non-negotiables, to give them the best chance at being recruited by college?
You got first and foremost, you gotta have your grades. I mean, you gotta make sure you're taking your core classes. You have a certain GPA to even. I mean, if not, it's just a waste of time. Nobody can recruit you. They made it a little harder now, so it's important. Like your freshman year, you need to make sure you go to your guidance counselor, get that chart, make sure you're enrolled in all the classes that you're supposed to be in. You got to stay out of trouble. I mean, the amount of trouble. Well, I don't want to say you can be a troublemaker, but you know, you got to be very, very good for somebody to even consider dealing with you if you're, you know, always in trouble off the court. So a lot of people place a high priority on character, you know, and then obviously you got to be able to play.
Right.
I mean, you got to be realistic about your talents. If I know I'm not obviously a 5-star kid, I'm not just wasting time emailing Kentucky.
Right.
You know, it's just you gotta be realistic. You know, they're sleeper. Everybody, they're not gonna miss out on you.
Yeah.
Tom, is that the disconnect that we're familiar with?
Major. I mean, you know, I'm trying to ask that without really providing the context of a lot of our other conversations, but I mean, especially the last month, my phone has been really ringing off the hook with a lot of people, and this is the time of year where they panic anyways, but with 2020 going the way it's going and no unsigned seniors camp, no spring AAU for unsigned seniors, it's at a panic right now.
It's a little different now, obviously. Like, you know, usually if some unsigned seniors around now, they can play an AAU tournament right now.
Right.
With some younger guys and still probably get seen. But I mean, if my advice would be to just, you know, look at your options that you have. You know, don't discredit those people, whether it's D3, D2, D1. You know, see who genuinely wants you. Be realistic about your ability, and then go from there. Everybody's path's different. I mean, you could go D3 and still go to the NBA.
Duncan Robinson just did it.
Yeah, you can go D2 for
a
couple years if, you know, you get better and better, and who knows, maybe you want to transfer up, and then, you know, check it out after that. JUCO is obviously a great route. I mean, they put out hundreds of D1 players every year.
Right.
But so everybody's route's different. You just gotta prioritize who's prioritizing you right now, because it's late in the game. Nobody's trying to waste anybody's time now. So
the guys that we'll move on to kind of a different area and what you've seen through your experience, the guys that fizzle out, the guys that don't reach their potential. What are some of the common things that you've seen that keeps people from reaching their potential on the court from your standpoint?
Work ethic and distractions off the court. Those usually common denominators when people don't reach their potential.
Yeah, I'm guessing you mean that the work ethic, well, in practice, but probably outside of practice as well.
Yeah, because everybody practices.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everybody practices every day. Obviously, you get 1 day off a week usually, but everybody's practicing. It's what you do like before or after that you can separate yourself to get better. It's hard to really get that much better during the season.
Facts.
You just practicing, playing games.
Facts.
So it's preseason, postseason. I mean, after the season is when you can really dive in and spend time in the gym and get better. And you don't have to have a trainer in there at all times. I mean, you can.
Julius, you mentioned something about AI.
Oh,
About AI. I'm gonna switch gears.
Flashback
here
moment.
real quick because we had some men's league battles. There's some men's league battles. I'm telling you.
so I think it was right after he graduated high school, Terrence. We got a friend that's up in Virginia, and matter of fact, I just talked to him the other day. Dave Mater.
Flex.
Nah, he reached out to me about a couple opportunities or whatever, but I think he was like a business manager or something
He ran AI's foundation.
Okay, yeah, he ran Allen Iverson's foundations, and of course, when AI had an event or whatever, he would look out for us. So, a family friend had met him in the Army, and they were in service together. So that's how we.
So this is y'all's cousin.
Yeah, again, Maysville in the building.
Right.
But so he invited a group of guys from Maysville, and because he watched us hoop, he always loved how we played. So he was like, "Look, why don't y'all come on up?" So they go up and play, and I'll let you take. You want to take the stage, or you want me to keep rolling with this?
If he doesn't give any detail, if he gives a garbage answer, you
Well,
just
let
jump
me
in.
lay it
All right,
out
well, let's
for
let
you.
him try.
Let me lay it out
Let's
for you. So
He's too humble, man.
the kids from Maysville roll out on the court, whatever they doing, they little layups, whatever. They look up. Car pulls up. I think it was a limo.
Nah, it was Rolls Royce.
Was it
Maybach.
okay? Rolls Royce.
Okay.
All right. Out walks Allen Iverson, suited and booted. He ready to play. So he walks out on the court, and they going at it. And, they go throughout the game, and he is like, who's this little dude right here?
Pick it up, T. Pick it up. What was going on in the game?
Well, you're outside the park. Everybody's around.
Showing out, yeah.
Talking back and forth. He got these two huge security guards. They stand under both rims.
Yeah.
So, I fouled him hard a couple of times. We just competing, talking back and forth. I got a couple stops. But, he probably wasn't going that hard, but I got a couple stops. I kind of got his respect. I scored
So
once,
much
I
so
scored once or
that-
twice, so that, he stops and during the timeout takes off his shoes and signs them and gives them to me. Still got them to this day.
Can
That's
we?
nasty.
Can we?
That's dope.
We did have a.
That's awesome.
I will say this: we almost won the tournament. We got
Yeah.
beat. We had an all-star squad. We had Alvin Sims, Sean Meyer, Neil Jenkins, Corey Dunford, Timmy Meyer.
Y'all was balling.
Larry Meyer.
Yeah,
Timmy
Larry
Meyer,
Meyer. We took a nice squad up there.
They were just messing around, and y'all came for real.
Yeah.
That's
Kentucky
Kentucky,
boys,
man. That's
Maysville.
Kentucky boys, Maysville
Yeah,
boys.
We got beat in the championship.
You're not going to play about basketball with Maysville boys. This is not going to happen.
We beat AI's team. We got beat in the championship to a team from Philly. So
Dang.
it was a lot of fun.
That's a great story.
I got you. And just as we're wrapping up, King, any final words for the young whippersnappers? Anybody listening?
Man, basically, you heard it from one of the best in the game I heard today, man. Coach Commodore, he's telling you, he's giving you the game. He's letting you know, great work ethic, positive attitude, and not being a knucklehead, man. It's going to get you there. And you got to put that work in after practice.
Yeah. I want to say that this could be, like most of our time flies, this could be just a part one, but the takeaway that I have from this conversation today is the way that Coach Commodore has lived his life and treated people has, afforded him opportunities that on the surface people would look like and say, well, Terrence is just his favorite, or he got a hook up here, or like what a low-level thinker would say is that something's been given to this guy because he knows everybody or whatnot. He earned all of that from the get-go. And so, even down to consider something random, maybe his freshman year in high school. If he was a knucklehead to one of the coaches, to Coach Wells, would Coach Wells have taken more of an interest in Terrence or not, to be able to mentor him to get his mind going towards coaching? And so my biggest takeaway, all these stories are amazing. And of course, we'll have him back on, it's a family. But the biggest takeaway today is what you do and how you live your life and your character, it matters in a major way. You cannot live your life where you're not serving other people and looking out for other people and trying to help them and then expect all these blessings to come. And Terrence is a great story of that. Live your life, be trustworthy, be a high character guy, and work like you're saying, King. Just work. And you're setting yourself up for the best chance. That's the takeaway.
I heard it right there. TC, a.k.a. Mr. Commodore, Coach Commodore, official all the way. Julius King, family as always. Appreciate you guys stopping by another episode of the KBC Hoops Podcast. Listeners, download this, stream this, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music is coming real soon. We'll see you guys next time. Another episode of the KBC Hoops Podcast.